What's going on, guys? Thanks so much for coming back. This is entry 36 in the Diary of a Cinephile, and I'm super excited to be talking about the Mortal Kombat movie. It just released yesterday. I finally got an opportunity to sit down and watch it, and I was gonna wait, but I'm seeing a lot of reviews coming out, and a lot of them, they seem to be very mixed, and I just feel like I need to throw my opinion into the pool, get mixed in there a little bit with everybody else, and just express exactly what I expressed in my other entry that I did for this film when the trailer first came out. So now, we have to start by prefacing one very, very important thing. This is not a film that's meant to live up to the expectations of anything except its source material. It's not meant to live up to anything except for this long history of over 20 different video games, and that's it. That's the only thing it's meant to live up to. The issue that falls on a lot of these people is that they're trying to review it in such a way that they're trying to put it on the same level as, say, something like what's something that just came out recently that I could compare this to that people are praising, and rightfully so. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but maybe just think of any film that might win an award this year. This isn't going to get nominated for any awards. It's not fucking supposed to. And I think that's what people are losing when they watch this film. You're not meant to go into this expecting this to be the friggin' Revenant. This isn't, Leonardo DiCaprio wasn't casted in this film for a fucking reason. And for everybody who's bashing on it or giving it a poor rating, I remember seeing something on my Google feed, because I get a lot of news articles about movies and stuff. Somebody said that how the new Mortal Kombat film rips the hearts out of fans everywhere. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Here's one thing you have to understand. When you go back all the way to the 90s, when the first game came out, all they were trying to do was make a cool fighting game. The essential lore and backstory and mythology that created the Mortal Kombat universe, they had ideas for it. I remember seeing an interview with Ed Boon. They had ideas for this stuff, but there was nothing set in stone. They've created these stories and this mythology as the years have progressed, and they changed it drastically throughout. And here's the thing, not every game is great, and it's just completely brutal, fun fighting games. That's all this film had to be. It had to be brutal, it had to be fun, and it had to have everything that we wanted from the video games, and that's characters that we knew and characters we recognized. There's a couple that I wish were in there, but they did set up the ending for a sequel, and of course, I feel they're going to get one because to me, this is a success. This is very, very good. It's very enjoyable. The few characters that are in it, they do it well. I said in the last entry, I didn't know who the character of Cole was. I had no idea what his plot was or where he comes from. I do like the storyline they've given him for this film, and it's a good movie. It's good enough. It doesn't have to be the fucking anything that's important to anybody but fucking fans, and that's what I think a lot of critics, they lose when it comes to what they're trying to criticize. And I understand, because I'm not trying to be this movie critic that just talks about whether or not this is a movie that lives up to Oscar nominations, whether or not this will be put in the Golden Globes category for top action films or anything like that. No, this isn't meant for that. This is not meant for that. And when you lose touch with what this film is meant to be, when you lose the heart of what the film actually is meant to be, it's meant to be for the fans. And if you haven't seen it yet, I don't want to spoil too much, but I am going to talk about one scene. And this particularly, I had to stop the film because I was laughing so much. So there's a scene where they're training, and the character Liu Kang is fighting with, I forget who he's fighting with, but he starts doing a leg sweep. And every time the guy gets up, he keeps doing a leg sweep. And at one point, the guy says, is that your only move? And all that fucking reminds me of is when you were kids and you were playing this game, and there were 3 moves that you always did. You always did an uppercut. You always did a dozen punches to them in the corner until they could back up and they couldn't jump out of the way because you just kept throwing punches. And the leg sweep. Those are three of the most overused moves in Mortal Kombat history, at least from the first few games. I don't know about the new ones. I haven't played much of the new ones. But if you know what I mean by the leg sweep, yes, there's a scene in there where they sort of, like, it's like a hat tipper kind of scene, and they're making fun of it, and only if you're a fan, you're going to get that. If you walk in there and you've never played a Mortal Kombat game, you're not going to get that, and you're not going to appreciate that. It's going to look like a dumb scene to you, which is probably what a lot of these things look like. They probably look like dumb scenes, and that's where these people are coming from. They're coming from a movie standpoint. They're not coming from anything that has to do with its source material. Like, all the characters look great. All the costumes look great. Nothing is dull. The story is fairly decent when it comes to the idea that it takes what the real story is, and that's... What I know about the games is as they progressed, it became very much a storyline that revolved around Scorpion and Sub-Zero. So that's what this movie does. This movie basically takes the really deep and unchanged battle that their two clans have. The Lin Kuei and the Shiryu. And that wasn't anywhere near the first few games. That only came in much, much later, and this really establishes that storyline, and it builds off it. There's a lot of people that, come and go. There's a lot of little quirky references to other things here and there. But what I do need people to understand, I need people to appreciate, is that if you're a fan of Mortal Kombat, you're going to like this film. If you've never touched one of those games in your life, you're not going to get it. And that means that the film is not for you. And I constantly have a conversation with a buddy of mine about whether or not a film is meant for a certain audience or if it's meant for the general audience. Here's the thing. Every film is meant for the general audience. It's whether or not the general audience appreciates what it's meant to be for is what bothers me, because a lot of times the general audience, they like to shit on films like this, and then that hurts fans because they're the majority speakers, and that's what's happening with this. A lot of these critics, they may not be fans of these games, so they're not going to be fans of this movie because they're not going to get a lot of the stuff. It's got great action. It's got a mediocre story, but again, it doesn't have to be an Oscar winner. You know what I'm saying? It's got a story good enough for the story it's telling, and all the action is great. All the corny one-liners are great. I remember seeing somebody comment on Facebook saying that this was a solid B movie. And that's true. And the thing is that's all it needs to be. All it needs to be is a solid B movie that will hopefully lead to more. And if it does show that this is something the fans want, and I think the fans really should support this film because they did a very, very good job at it, and I hope they make more. I hope this leads into some more things and more stories down the line. And all the actors and actresses, they did great in it. Jessica McNamee, Joe Talzum, Louis Tan, the guy who plays Scorpion. I'm not going to be able to say his name correctly, so I'm just going to kind of avoid it, but he's a great actor. He does perfect. Ludi Lin, Sissy Stringer, all of these actors and actresses, they do a fantastic job at every one of their characters. It's very, very well done if you're looking at it like, I want them to do these characters justice. They do these characters justice. Shao Tsung is great. Raiden is great. Liu Kang, Kung Lao. Kung Lao's been involved since the second game. There's been so many movies, film adaptations, and animated series. I don't think he's ever been portrayed in this fashion. And he looks fantastic. All of his fighting styles, with the hat and everything, they make the hat look perfect. And the relationship between him and Liu, they talk about it and it's discussed. And maybe they could even do something where they kind of, go deeper into that in the next film, maybe do some flashback things, even though I don't really like that too much, but there's good dynamic there, and that they're like the team that everybody knows about. Everybody knows Liu Kang and Kung Lao are like, brothers in arms, warriors till death, and I think they're actually cousins too. I'm not 100% sure, but I think they're actually cousins, but they deserve to go a little bit deeper into, and maybe this film could have given that to them, but they gave them enough that you understand their relationship, and I mean, I don't know what else I can say that's going to spoil it, but what's going to be also praising this film. Like, it's just, I found so much enjoyment in it. I'm not going to say I was on, like, the edge of my seat, but it did keep me attentive to the film, and you lose track of time. It's one of those films that you'll watch and you'll just lose track of time because of how good it is and how attended you are to what's happening, to what's going on. You want to keep watching. And there's nothing that feels out of place, nothing that feels like they left something out, they did too much, they did too little. It feels like just enough to start things off. And I hope that this is successful enough to lead into more, and that we do get another one, maybe even a trilogy. I'll be happy with a trilogy. I'm not saying this has to go until, you do every storyline possible and you give me every character possible. You know what I really want? I want a Kenshi. I want Kenshi in one of these films, and I want this to go long enough till they can give me a live-action Kenshi. They had this series, Machinima, which was a YouTube channel 8 years ago, maybe. They did their own kind of new reboot live-action adaptation of Mortal Kombat, and they're the only time I've ever seen Kenshi portrayed. And I would love him in this film. They talk about other characters a lot too, and so you know that they exist in that universe. And there's a lot of potential because there's a lot of source material, and you could definitely do a solid trilogy and please everybody just by following this pattern of giving us another round of different characters with each one and kind of making the story make enough sense that you can make the film and make it where it's not boring like this one wasn't. And I know that these writers and the production company, they have the capabilities of doing that, and this proves it. If anything, this is a market tester, and this is going to determine whether or not we get more, and we should. We should get a lot more of this. This is way better than what we got in the 90s, and I believe I said it in the last entry about that I spoke about when I was talking about the trailer. When I was a kid, I loved those films, but I was also 8 years old, 9 years old at the time. I didn't know any better. You watch them now, you can obviously tell that it's missing something. But those films were also made when there was only 2 games out at the time, maybe 3. So it had even less of like a foundation. All they were fighting games with very minimal source material. All you knew was they fight each other. That's all you know. Now that the Mortal Kombat realm is so rich and it has so much more content now. When they progress these games after, I think it was like Mortal Kombat Armageddon or even Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance for the PlayStation 2, one of those games kicked off this era of just pushing the boundaries of what Mortal Kombat gave us. And if they go back to those games and they give us a lot of content and lore and mythology that those games gave us, and they put them in live action like they did this, it's gonna be successful. And we should all accept it with open arms. And I'm really gonna say this, if you're not a fan, you might not like this. If you are, from the bottom of my heart, I'm gonna say I believe you're gonna love it. Because I loved it, and I'm a Mortal Kombat fan. But if you're not a Mortal Kombat fan, you're probably not gonna like this. But that doesn't mean we don't deserve it.